Well, it's great to have Bernie Gaynor with me today. Bernie, thanks for joining me. You're just fresh out of court last week in the New South Wales Supreme Court. Tell us about what's been going on.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, Lowell. So, I was in the New South Wales Court of Appeal in late February, once again challenging the jurisdiction of New South Wales courts and tribunals in relation to, or specifically tribunals in relation to anti-discrimination law and complaints being directed by gay activists in New South Wales against people living outside the state.
So for those who are not familiar with your trials and travails through the New South Wales court system, a serial gay activist, Gary Burns, has been taking you to court literally hundreds of times.
Well, it's not hundreds of times. He's taken me 37 times.
37 times. Well, that almost sounds hundreds. But you've been dragged through the courts. It's cost you a heck of a lot of money. You've sold your house to, I think you said tonight, $300,000 in legal fees so far. This is crazy. What's your crime, mate? And why aren't you in jail?
Well, it's interesting, Lowell. So 37 complaints. Not a single complaint has been substantiated. First one was lodged in May 2014. Last one was lodged about a month ago. That was in relation to the Brisbane City Council petition that Wendy Francis launched against Drag Queen Storytime. I shared that.
So you shared Wendy Francis's petition, Wendy Francis from the Australian Christian Lobby, who, like all of us, were concerned about the Brisbane City Council allowing sexualised drag queens, someone by the name of Diamond Goodrim referencing, obscene homosexual acts, reading to tiny tots. So you shared a petition complaining about that, and Gary Burns lodged an action against you, a legal action.
Yes, the 37th complaint. So
what country are we in?
I think it's called Australia. So I've been to the New South Wales Civil and Administrative Tribunal, the appeal panel of the tribunal, the local court, the Supreme Court, Court of Appeal, and the High Court of Australia. Not a single complaint substantiated. The complaints were all on. I'm back in there again because New South Wales changed its laws after I won in the High Court to try and keep its tribunal process going.
Now, the crazy thing about all this, we're talking New South Wales courts, but you live in Queensland.
Yes.
And all this started because you, as a former Army major, complained rightly about the Australian Defence Force allowing soldiers to march in uniform in the Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras.
Yes, so
that was part of it. I know there's other things as well, but this has been an ongoing sort of...
So I have had complaints from Mr Burns about my views on defence in the Mardi Gras. I've had complaints basically every time I write about marriage, family and morality, express concerns about the rainbow agenda, there'll be a complaint. It is quite frustrating, but I think it's quite serious that people understand just how bad these laws are.
So Gary Burns is using New South Wales anti-discrimination legislation to try and essentially silence your views, which are pro, man-woman marriage, pro heterosexual family, the natural family view of the world, which, whether people agree or disagree with the rainbow political agenda, there should be tolerance in our nation for people like you and I who hold views around heterosexuality and what we think the family is and what's ideal for human flourishing.
You'd think there'd be tolerance. In one of his many emails he sent to me, Mr Burns not so politely told me to leave Australia with my wife and children. He also describes himself as a anti-free speech activist.
So the law is weighted against you. You've been tied up in all this lawfare. Now, a significant development happened last week. You got some political support from Mark Latham of One Nation New South Wales. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I'm very grateful to Mark Latham. So Mark Latham has put a bill into New South Wales Parliament. So it's not a law yet. It's got to be passed by the Parliament to become a law. But this law, if it's passed, will force the President of the Anti-Discrimination Board to dismiss vexatious complaints, which you would think should be common sense. But at the moment, the President of the Anti-Discrimination Board only may dismiss vexatious complaints. So they've been choosing to accept all complaints and choosing not to look into whether they're vexatious or not. And more than that, when they refer the complaints to the tribunal, the president of the Anti-Discrimination Board has been removing my evidence that these complaints are lodged for financial reasons, for instance, because that's what Gary Burns has said he's hoping to do, bankrupt me, take my assets. The president has been removing that material from the file and saying that it is not relevant to the material. So that is a scandal that will be addressed. The other issue that will be addressed, not many people will know about this, there's a brain damaged man in New South Wales. He has been on the receiving end, I think, of 87 complaints from Gary Burns.
This is John Sunnell, who you've talked about.
Yes. So he has brain damage. He cannot express himself like someone who doesn't have brain damage. And the anti-discrimination industry has allowed these gay activists, because there's been more than one, to absolutely destroy John. There's even a risk he could potentially end up in jail. They're trying to get him to face contempt charges now. This is a man who has got no understanding of... he's got brain damage. So Mark Latham's bill will force the Anti-Discrimination Board to reject complaints against people with mental incapacity. And the third thing it will do will make it very clear, although I believe it's already clear in the law anyway, but it will limit complaints to actions that occur in New South Wales.
So they can't go after people in Queensland like yourself? So.
Well, I believe under the law anyway, at the moment, that it is unlawful, unconstitutional, both in New South Wales and under Commonwealth law, for these actions to occur against people outside.
Well,
but this law that Mark's bringing in will require the president to dismiss complaints.
But the crazy thing is, regardless of whether someone's going after you in Queensland from New South Wales, no one should be going after anyone because of their views on what they think about marriage or who is an appropriate person or not to teach our children. I think one of the complaints from Burns against you is
that was not that issue.
That was not that issue. But you've said in the past that that you believe that you would want your children taught by someone who shares your views about human sexuality and what human flourishing is in that area of life. Now, you should be entitled to that opinion, I would think, without being dragged through the court system for it.
Exactly. So I object to the entire system. I object to the legal framework of the system, which is why I've been to the High Court and I've won, and there's a chance we'll see what happens with the Court of Appeal. I object also to the idea that people should have to account to some state-funded bureaucratic body for their views on issues like marriage, family and morality.
So Burns gets legal aid funding, taxpayer support,
no.
essentially.
So he has had legal representation in the past. At the moment, he is not represented. He's had legal representation in the past from a number of high-profile law firms. I don't know.
Has he paid for that? Or?
I don't know. I don't know about that. The system, though, is designed to help complainants. So it's free to lodge complaints. There's no penalty for false or vexatious complaints. And I'll just point out that one of his complaints involved him complaining about his own comments that he left on my Facebook page. So complaining that you should have got rid of complaints like that, got comments like that off your Facebook page, even though he'd made them. Is that where he's going on this, in this sort of twisted logical world? So what he put out a press release stating that I had said exterminate the homos, which I've never ever said.
Of course not. You wouldn't say that.
I don't support that concept. I think it's an abhorrent idea.
Of course.
He put out a press release saying I said that. He put a link to that press release on my Facebook page, and it populated part of that press release, and then he highlighted the words exterminate the homos, which was in his press release, which he put on my Facebook page, and he put a complaint into the Anti-Discrimination Board. And the Anti-Discrimination Board accepted it because they said, doesn't matter that Mr. Burns wrote those words, all that matters is that they were on my Facebook page.
So you've spent how many years in the legal system now?
Since May 2014.
And that was essentially when you mounted your campaign against Defence?
That was around the same time. So there's some linkages between them.
Yep.
But that's a separate legal battle,
Yep.
but
Yep.
that also was occurring around the same
Yeah,
time.
and of course, Defence are now going after you for legal costs.
So Defence are pursuing me for legal costs now.
Outrageous. Yeah.
In the order of about, I should know, it's about $680,000, I
Holy
think.
mackerel. So,
And
so that's hanging over your and your family's head right now.
Yes, and we can talk about this. So, Defence. I mean, look, we just had the Chief of Defence Force tell parliaments that he was uncomfortable that defence imagery was in a political party advertising for the
Scott
Liberal
Morrison
National Party.
talking about his efforts with the sending Defence in to fight the bushfires. So,
Yep.
yeah.
So, and look, and to be honest, I can understand the concern there. Now, this is the hypocrisy of it. A week before he expressed his concern about that particular advertising, Defence marched with the Greens, the Labor Party, the Rainbow LNP, and a large number of LGBT political lobby groups. Down Oxford Street.
Transgender activists who want to teach our children that their gender is fluid.
Including people protesting against our secure border policies, which the Defence Force is there to implement.
Defence is supposed to be non-political, though.
So they are not non-political on some things. So if you're not going to be non-political on some things, that means that you are not apolitical.
Yeah.
And I just want to delve into this a bit more. During the week, there has been a fair bit of news coverage about the fact that one of the people who work in the Fair Work Commission had some figurines in his workspace of scantily clad females. Okay? Now, apparently, shock horror, that's unacceptable. Defence marched down the street with people who are exposing their breasts, exposing their backsides in all sorts of...
I saw you tweet that and I retweeted it. I mean, it's absolutely disgraceful.
Disgraceful
Why is
attire.
Defence associated with
So
that?
if it's unacceptable for someone to have figurines of scantily clad females in their workplace, why is Defence making a workplace on Oxford Street during Mardi Gras? It is just complete hypocrisy, and I say that the reason no one is prepared to say no about this in the hierarchy of the Defence Force is because they have lost the courage to say no.
Which is a shame, because courage is one of the chief virtues that we need from our military. You've been to Iraq 3 times. You've put yourself on the line, put yourself in dangerous positions for our country. What does that make you feel about where our country is right now? It's a bit of a Dorothy Dixon, but I think it's a relevant question.
No,
for someone who served,
it's quite a difficult question to answer in some ways, because there are so many emotions sometimes that run through me about these things. But, you know, I sometimes feel like I am a stranger in my own country. And that's a very sad and difficult thing to be. And I do worry about the future of our nation, because we are living in times of anarchy and chaos, because there is no consistency, there is no principle, there is simply the whim of whoever is in power, and whatever they decide is deemed to be right.
Well, Bernie, I think those of us who have been watching your case admire the fact that you stand up and that you are fighting and you're going through the legal processes. We look at what happens to you in disbelief and feel just like you articulated, and all we can say is thanks for doing what you're doing, and keep going, and we trust that the right will prevail in the long term. So thanks, mate, and God bless you, and good luck.
Thanks, Dol. God bless you too. Keep it up.
Thanks, mate.